The people who, for decades, have been claiming that public schools are centers for indoctrination of children have just set up a school to indoctrinate children. Of course. Now, according to Truth Out, a state school board in Oklahoma has voted to approve what would be the nation's first publicly funded religious school. Now, the application to form the school, an online public charter school that would serve K through 12, was submitted by the Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma. And in their application, they do not hide the purpose of it. In the vision and purpose section of the application, they write, the Catholic school participates in the evangelizing mission of the church and is the privileged environment in which Christian education is carried out. What is Christian education? What is that? I mean, I hear that and I think indoctrination. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Now, that said, I have no problem with Christian schools. What I have a problem with is taxpayer funding going to public religious themed schools. And it doesn't matter which religion it is. It's unconstitutional. Even knowing that, though, the statewide virtual charter school board has approved the application of the St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School by a 3-2 vote earlier this week. How could they vote for something that is so incredibly unconstitutional, violating the First Amendment? Turns out, might have been a little drama involved. So now, this isn't the first application. This is the second application from this religious school. That first one was actually unanimously rejected back in April. So now, they, after the rejection, they revised and then resubmitted their application, and it was approved. Now, the drama comes into the play because it turns out Oklahoma House Speaker Charles McCall, who's a Republican, appointed a new board member to replace a previous one at the last minute on Friday. So, wait, you're having a last minute appointment? Maybe look, okay. Maybe I don't know what the deal here is. Maybe I'm reading into it a little too much. But to me, it seems a little sketchy that they would go from unanimous to 3-2 after one person gets replaced. Again, on something that is obviously unconstitutional. Sketchy. And look, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Actually, Republican Attorney General Gentner Drummond, he's like, yeah, I'm not buying this at all. Quote, the approval of any publicly funded religious school is contrary to Oklahoma law and not in the best interest of taxpayers. This is a Republican. Credit where credit is due. He also says it's extremely disappointing that board members violated their oath in order to fund religious schools with our tax dollars. In doing so, these members have exposed themselves to the state to potential legal action. True. Again, I may not agree with Mr. Drummond on a lot of policy issues, but we both agree unconstitutional AF. Okay? So now the ACLU and the Americans United for Separation of Church and State are now, as a result, preparing a joint lawsuit calling this religious indoctrination. I'm going to give you a statement here from Americans United CEO Rachel Laser, which, by the way, awesome. Quote, it's hard to think of a clearer violation of the religious freedom of Oklahoma taxpayers and public school families than the state establishing the nation's first religious public charter school. This is a sea change for American democracy. State and federal law are clear. Charter schools are public schools that must be secular and open to all students. The Archdiocese argued first that the school would be a private entity, but it funded with taxpayer money, so you can't really have it both ways. If you're taking taxpayer money, then it can't be a private religious school, period. I'm not saying that private religious schools can't exist or even public religious schools can't exist. It just can't be funded by the public. You want to do that? You want to have a school? Okay, fine. You want to do Christian education? Fine. Do it on your own dime, not on ours. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, they know it's unconstitutional. It's very, very clear. But also, they don't seem to care. Remember, the goal here is to put Christianity in public education and to replace public education with religious education. That's indoctrination. And again, they're trying to erode the separation of church and state. You've heard Lauren Boebert come out and say, "Oh, yeah, separation of church and state is all junk. It's not actually in the Constitution." Well, I know, a terrible Boebert impression, right? But here's the thing. First Amendment says, you shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof. I think it's pretty clear. And, of course, Jefferson, in the letter, Danbury Baptist, pointed out that that part of the Constitution, the First Amendment, basically sets up a wall of separation between church and state. That's interpreted from the Constitution by one of the people who wrote it. I mean, it seems to be pretty clear that you have a Constitution that says you cannot set up a religion by the state. And if you are funding with taxpayer public money a religious institution for religious purposes, education, that's clearly in violation. So, I mean, there it is. But the whole point, again, is to erode separation of church and state by putting it before the Supreme Court. The right is already setting the stage for this to, uphold the approval of Saint Isidore of Seville. And according to a Substack newsletter named Public Notice, they've cited cases that have already vastly eroded the separation of church and state. In 2020, for instance, the Supreme Court decided that it's unconstitutional for Montana to grant certain funding to public schools, but not religious schools, forcing states to fund religious private schools. And then last year, the Supreme Court protected the ability of a public school football coach to lead his students in Christian prayer following the games. So, yeah, they are setting this up. And obviously, the Supreme Court seems to be, again, it's under, right-wing control. And it's not looking good, basically. What you have here is a majority conservative Supreme Court that apparently doesn't seem to understand the Constitution that they're supposed to be the ones interpreting. Wanting to add religion to this. So all this stuff about, the schools are indoctrinating your children into, the latest thing is they're transing your kids. Not true at all. No, all of that is just projection. In reality, they're not against indoctrination at all. They just want to be the ones who are actually indoctrinating your kids.